Hey everybody, it's John King and I am here live on Friday the 8th of November with very little to talk about. Really, it's been quite a boring week in the news. It's been quite a boring week for the housing market and for interest rates. And I'm sure that everybody's just, not really interested in what I think about anything that's going on. Yeah? No? Okay. Well, hey, let's dive in. First and foremost, the most important thing I want to talk about, Santa Claus is coming to Roseville on Saturday, December 7th. So if you are in Northern California and you would like to come see me and my team and my family at my office in Roseville, Saturday, the 7th of December from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., Santa Claus is coming to Roseville. Free pictures with Santa. Would love to see you there. If you can make it, please join. Email us. I'll put a link down below in the comments or in the description when I get a chance. I did not put it in ahead of time, but let us know if you can make it. We'd love to see you there. All right. So lots of news this week, lots of news this week. So first of all, the Fed met yesterday. I know nobody really paid attention. Why? Because of something that happened 2 days before the election. But the Fed did meet yesterday. The Fed lowered interest rates by 0.25%, and nobody cares. Like nobody cares. The Fed did what we expected them to do. It didn't impact interest rates at all. The funny thing is mortgage rates fell yesterday. And a lot of people are going to think, oh my gosh, mortgage rates fell because the Fed lowered interest rates. No, not at all. Like it had to do with the election. It had to do with the thoughts about what's happening with the future of the government, the future of the economy. The Fed does influence mortgage rates. But the truth is the Fed is influenced by the economy and by the markets. And so the market, even though the Fed reacted yesterday, the Fed's reaction yesterday was old news. They said nothing new. They said nothing special. They said, oh, we're staying out of political commentary here. I'm staying out of political commentary. I'm not going to talk about politics. I'm going to talk about facts. Okay. The Fed still has a major job to do in lowering interest rates. The market predicts, mortgage rates predict what they think is going to happen. And it's the impact of the election. It's the impact of what that could mean to the economy, what it could mean if there are future tariffs that are implemented, all of those things that the Fed's not going to talk about yet, because that's all speculation, and the Fed does not talk into speculation. Traders do. Traders in the stock market do. Traders in the mortgage market do, bond market. So traders speculate. The Fed reports on facts. The Fed says, I want to see factual information. Look, the last week's unemployment report came in super low, but they're kind of saying, maybe that's just a thing because of the Boeing layoffs and because of the hurricanes. And so they're ignoring that. And so the Fed news yesterday, no news whatsoever. It did not impact the market. Even though rates got better yesterday, it had nothing to do with the Fed. What did it have to do with? It had to do with the election. And this is where I want to really dive in and help you understand what this means. First and foremost, we don't know what it means, but we can look back at history a little bit as a lesson of what has happened. So first of all, I'm not going to be political. I'm going to be factual. Donald Trump has already been a president once. We've got history of what he did the first time, whether you like it or not, doesn't matter. He is going to be the president of the United States. And so as you look at the things that he did in his first term, and we say, well, if he's likely to enact similar things, the market's trying to react to that. The market's trying to see, well, what happened when he was president the first time and how should we expect that? And so the first thing I want to share with you is this wonderful chart right here. So give me 1 second to pull this up. All right, so let's get rid of that. This chart, let's make this even bigger. So let's get rid of this little thing right here. And let's make this thing a whole lot bigger. Put me in the corner. There you go. Nobody puts baby in the corner, but I put myself in the corner. All right. So what we are looking at is we're looking at a chart that outlines what interest rates have done. And this is going from January of 2016 through the end of 2017. So a 2-year timeline. In this 2-year timeline, we saw interest rates at the beginning of 2016. By the way, the election happened at the end of 2016, November of 2016. So we saw interest rates dropping from 4%, going down, all the way to about 3.5% by middle of July. And then they kind of stayed bouncing around back and forth until the election. So literally Tuesday, November 3rd is when the election day was. Wednesday is when it was officially announced, hey, Trump won the election and the market took off and we saw rates go up a little bit, but after Thursday, they shot up. Okay, so we saw interest rates climb significantly. We went from 3.5%. As a matter of fact, right before the election, on Tuesday the 3rd, the election day, this is not lining up for me. Anyway, election day, we were right around 3.5%. It shot up over the next 30 days to 4.3%. It went up 0.8% because nobody expected Trump to get elected. And that election caused a serious shift in, wow, what's this going to mean for inflation? What's this going to mean for the economy? But the first thing that we have to recognize is that it actually is an indicator of optimism. It's an indicator that the stock market took off. The same thing happened on Wednesday. The stock market took off. Interest rates went up mostly on Wednesday because of the difference between, or the trade-off between money flowing into stocks or money flowing into bonds and mortgages or a bond. And so it's really simple. An investor might have money set aside in the bond market saying, it's safe over here. And then they say, oh my gosh, the economy's about to take off. Things are about to be really, really good. And so they move their money, that same money, into the stock market. When you take money out of bonds, it causes rates to go up. Just trust me on that. And so when good news for the stock market is often bad news for the bond market. That's what happened Wednesday. Stock market took off on Wednesday. All the money pulled out of the bond market. It caused mortgage rates to shoot up on Wednesday. Okay. Now, what you're looking at from last year, or excuse me, from 8 years ago, is you're looking at the rates shot up after the election. And so everybody's thinking, oh my God, rates are going to go up now over the next month because now that Trump is in office, we're going to see rates skyrocket. Not really. Because Trump didn't actually go into office until January 20th. And so January 20th, so we're right around here, and rates were at a little over 4%. So they actually came back down before he went into office. And with the exception of one spike in March, rates got lower and lower and lower throughout that year. So as he actually took over and started implementing the policies that he wanted to implement, interest rates started going down. Now, things happened in 2017 and 18 and caused interest rates to go back up, but that's a whole nother thing. I'm talking about the short-term reaction. And I want you to see the difference this year. And so going back to the beginning of this year, and we've seen interest rates kind of be volatile this year. Let's make this guy bigger right here. So we saw interest rates volatile and kind of going up, and they kind of hit their peak in May, and then they came down, 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 and they hit their low end in September. Now, if you go back to 8 years ago, between June and November, they stayed the same. But here between, we saw interest rates drop, and then we kind of saw starting in the end of September, the market started pricing in a Trump win. The market started saying, hey, I want to get ahead of this because I learned my lesson 8 years ago. And so we saw rates going from an average of 6.08 all the way up to 6.8%. That's a 0.8% increase in interest rates because of the election. But in 2024, it happened before the election. In 2016, it happened in the month after the election. So do I think rates are going to keep going up over the next month like they did in 2016 after the election? No. That's why they went up over the last month. So we've already priced in a Republican administration. And that means a lot of things. Again, I'm not being political. I'm being factual about what this ultimately means. The market is saying, hey, I believe that this is going to, hold on, okay, put that back on there. The market believes that this is going to lead to potentially some inflationary issues. Because the idea that Trump ran on and the idea of what Trump did in 2016 is say, hey, I'm going to lower taxes. I'm going to make it easier to do business, and I'm going to stimulate the economy and help people make more money. Whether you agree or disagree, that is the idea. And that's what the market thinks happened in his first term and what the market expects to happen in his second term. And so the market's worried, hey, that's bad for inflation, because inflation simply is too many dollars chasing too few goods. And so if you have people making more money, that's going to be inflationary unless the production of goods also goes up. And ultimately, that's what happened in Trump's first presidential cycle, is in his first term, is that even though the policies he enacted were inflationary, he also produced more goods. And so economics is all about supply and demand. So having more money increases demand, but having more goods increases supply. And if you can increase both of them, you have a stronger, more robust economy. And that ultimately is what happened in the first term of his first year of his first term in office, was that it didn't become inflationary. But the market is still worried about that. They're worried about tariffs, and they're worried about, hey, tariffs essentially are inflationary. So a tariff, simple lesson here, a tariff is a tax charged on goods that come from a particular location. So Trump, the first time around, created kind of a trade war with China and said, hey, I don't want your stuff coming into our country. I want to use American-made products. Again, I'm not telling you this is good or bad. I'm just stating factual information. And so he added a tariff to that. Well, that makes things more expensive. And often the Federal Reserve will say, well, gosh, that's inflationary. We need to raise interest rates. But they didn't. And they didn't because in 2017, they concluded that if they did that, it would lead to a recession. And they do not want to lead to a recession. And so the impact was minimal. The impact to inflation due to the tariffs was minimal. He also took like 1.5 to 2 years after he became president to start fighting with China about trade. And so is it going to happen right away or not? I don't know, but I'll tell you, there's a lot of factors here. People promise things and then they don't necessarily deliver on everything that they're promising. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, but let me be very, very clear. I believe going forward, the stock market is feeling very optimistic. That's not good news for mortgage rates. The Fed ultimately has to lower interest rates because they're too high. The Fed's interest rate, the one that they control, is too high. It's what's called restrictive policy. And it's not appropriate for restrictive policy right now because inflation is low. So the Fed is going to be lowering rates, which is going to be good for mortgage rates. Now, what does that mean? It means we've got a lot of factors that are kind of competing against each other, and we're going to continue being in a crazy market where we've got a tug of war, and we're going to see high highs and low lows. We're going to see big swings, and that's not good news. The truth is, for the average home buyer, they want stability. The average home seller as well, they want stability, they want predictability, they want to know if I put my house on the market, I can expect to buy a house in a month or 2 or 3 and get this much money from the sale of my house, that I can spend this much because this is going to be the interest rate down the road. I had a client I talked to this morning that we were talking a month and a half ago and had him pre-approved when rates were at 5.75 for an FHA loan. And now they're at 6.5. Today they're at 6.5. They've come down a little bit over the last 2 days. So that's good news. That's not what we saw in 2016. We saw rates right after the election continue going up for the entire month. And now we had 1 day of rates going up, Wednesday, and then Thursday and Friday rates have come down just a little bit. So that's a good sign that we're not in the same pattern, that we've already taken the worst of the brunt of the hits, and that now the truth comes out. It's called buy the rumor, sell the fact. Okay, so the rumor is Trump going to win or is Harris going to win? And there's a lot of speculation back and forth. And so there was a lot of wild trading. Now we know who won and we know what to expect within reason. And now the market's starting to settle down, but it's still going to be volatile. And that's going to make it a difficult market for the average home buyer and seller to transact, because you don't know what to expect the interest rate and payment to be. I don't care if rates are at 8% or 2%. Predictability is what matters. And we have not had predictability over the last 3 years. It's going to continue to be our challenge going forward, is people being able to commit to the emotional journey, the emotional roller coaster of buying a home, of going out and searching for properties and getting your offer rejected and getting counter offered and should I move forward or not, when you can't really predict from day to day where the interest rates are going to be. If we just have some stability, that will be good. I thought we were going to have stability starting back in September, and that all blew up on us. So that's going to be our biggest challenge going forward, is really the fact that the election did give us some stability, but there's still going to be a lot more instability than stability. And so we've got to really be prepared. I think the next 45 days between now and the end of the year is going to be a lot more speculation. I think that even through January, people are still going to be sitting on the sidelines a little bit. It's funny because a lot of clients told me and some of my peers, hey, I'm waiting until after the election. And now their election's over and they're like, yeah, I'm waiting until the first of the year. Then at the first of the year, they're going to say, I'm waiting for the Easter Bunny. I don't know what people are waiting for. It's fear of making the wrong decision, fear of making a decision in an unstable market that is leading people to be paralyzed and make no decision. And so if you are courageous and are willing to make a decision when everybody else is paralyzed, that's normally where you win. Okay. And I want to share with you some recent stories about people who have won recently. So I have a couple of clients that I've had that really were determined to get a particular home with a deal, like to get a really, really good price on the home. And they spent a lot of time writing a lot of offers. And their strategy was, hey, I'm gonna look at houses that have been on the market for a period of time, 60 days or longer, and I'm gonna write a lowball offer. And one of my clients who just closed escrow a week ago today, they wrote like 25 offers on homes and got rejected on every single one of them. And then they wrote one where the seller really wanted to sell. This house had significant price drops, like to the tune of $200,000 in price drops. Now, the house was way overpriced. It wasn't in great condition. But the fact of the matter is, the house had not sold. And my buyer came in after $200,000 of price drops and wrote an offer for $50,000 below that price. And they actually countered it only $10,000 above that. So they still got it $40,000 above the lowest price that had been offered. And we closed escrow 3 weeks later. And it really is a testament. Now, this is not going to work in every market. It's not going to work for every person. But I will tell you, there are deals out there. I have a client that just got an offer accepted this morning. I do not have a copy of the offer, but I was not told there was a counter offer. And they wrote their offer. I'm pretty sure the offer was written $50,000 below the list price of the home. And the problem is people are going to think, oh my God, the housing market is crashing and prices are falling. No, a lot of sellers are being unrealistic. And a lot of those unrealistic sellers are unwilling to face reality and lower their price or accept a lower price. They'd rather let the house sit on the market or take the house off the market and let it expire and not sell at all. But for a lot of sellers, they're saying, you know what, I really do want to get it sold, and they want to get it sold now. Now, I think if they waited until the spring, they're going to get more money. I believe that if they wait until the spring, you're going to have more willing buyers as this market instability starts to settle down, as people already have the itch of saying, I'm tired of waiting. I really, really, really just want to make this happen. And a lot of sellers can make more money in the spring. But that's bad news for buyers. And so if you're in the position as a buyer and saying, I want to buy a home, now is the time for you to do that. And it might be about, if you are an emotional buyer, then you need to write an offer really high, because otherwise your emotions won't be able to stand rejection. This buyer that got his house last week, he wrote 25 offers. He wasn't an emotional buyer. It's a house to him. And so if the house checked the boxes, he'd write an offer, but he'd write it super low and then it'd get rejected. And he didn't care. It didn't cause him to have an emotional roller coaster. And for some people, they can do that. And for others, they cannot. For some people, they have to make a move. For this buyer, he didn't. He had a home already. He wasn't selling that home first. And so he was going to buy a new home and rent out his old one. And so time was on his side. He didn't care. That's the situation where you can get some really good deals in today's market. If you're flexible on what you're looking at, you're willing to take rejection, and you don't have a timeline you have to hit. But very few of you are in that case. Most of you, are emotional beings. That's typical. That's normal. That's nothing bad about that. But you're going to have a hard time writing an offer on a home unless you can picture yourself living in that home. And once you picture yourself living in that home, you're going to feel rejected and let down and sad because you lost something. Well, you didn't lose something you didn't have, but you still lost it because in your mind, you pictured yourself living there. And so for you, you've got to be more aggressive in the price that you're offering. Some of you are Dream for All buyers that have 45 days left on your voucher extension. You better get serious right now. You'd better stop looking for the deal, because yes, there might be a deal out there. And don't say, oh my gosh, John told me on his video back on the 8th of November that people are getting deals for 50, 100, 150,000 below the list price. Well, that list price was way too high, and it was a needle in a haystack. And that person, that buyer, had time on their side. My buyer that got their contract accepted this morning at what I think is $50,000 below the list price, they're an investor. They didn't have to, they're not looking for a house for them to personally live in. They're looking for a financially good deal. They're buying it as an investment property. If they didn't get this one, no big deal. They'll go for another one. But it was about the math. But if you have a deadline, that your landlord says you have to be out by a certain period of time, you have a Dream for All voucher and you have to buy by a certain period of time, if you have kids starting school and you need to be in that school district by a certain period of time, you have to use a different strategy. And you have to make sure that your lender and your realtor understand that and they are on the same page, helping to give you advice, because the advice for you is not the advice for everybody. And the advice for everybody is not the advice for you. So hopefully that helps. The last thing I want to talk about, by the way, if you have questions, feel free to post them in right now into the comment section of whatever platform you're watching on. I will be going back and responding to questions that come out from people who watch that were not live. But anybody who's live, feel free to post questions about anything you want, and I will happily answer anything you want. I don't want to get political, so I'll be clear. I'll be factual, but I do not want to be political. But if you have questions about the economy, about the election, about what the Fed is doing, post your comments now and I will happily answer them. FHA announced a few months back changes to the renovation program, and they came into effect last Monday, so 4 days ago. And it's really, really exciting because it makes it easier for people to do regular upgrades to their home and use what's called the FHA Streamline Renovation Loan. I'm a huge fan of this loan. And now the rules allow for larger amounts of projects to fall under that streamlined program. And it simplified the process. And really the key I want to point out is if you are a homeowner or a home buyer who says, hey, the house I have or the house I want to buy is good, but not great. It's not exactly what I want. A renovation loan is a great opportunity to allow you to purchase a home and get the money to renovate it all in one package deal. And you only put your down payment, if you're buying, you only put your down payment on the grand total. So if you buy a $600,000 home with $100,000 in upgrades, then your 3.5% down payment's based on the $700,000. You're not putting your 3.5% down on the 600 and then trying to find the other 100 to do the upgrades. So if you're in a position where you have a home that you own, but it's not exactly what you want, or you're looking to buy a home, but it's not going to be, you can't find what you need, then buy the home in the right location and turn it into the home that you want. Now, this program does not work with down payment assistance. It's an FHA loan product. So if you're looking at, hey, I'm buying an investment property or I'm using down payment assistance, you can't use this program. But if you're in any other circumstance, this is a great option that too many people overlook because, oh, that's too hard. I'll figure out where to come up with the money later. You're never going to do it. The biggest tragedy in home ownership is the fact that most people don't make their home the home of their dreams until they're ready to sell. And at the moment they're ready to sell, they say, oh my gosh, I need to fix up this house and turn it into the house that somebody's going to want to buy because they want to have all of these upgrades and amenities that I've always wanted. And I want to make my house more valuable and more marketable. And so they do the work in the 6 months before they put the house on the market. And they get zero time to spend enjoying the home of their dreams because they never made it the home of their dreams until they were done living there. Don't be that way. Don't fall into that trap. Look at ways to make the home the right home from day one, and a renovation loan is a great way to do that. Guys, that's all that I've got for you today, so I'll open it up. I don't see any questions that are in the queue, but if anybody does have any questions, feel free to post them right now. Otherwise, I just really appreciate everybody listening. I really appreciate your trust. I appreciate your referrals. I am interviewing to be your lender and to be the lender for everybody that you know. So if you know somebody that's looking to purchase a home, somebody that's looking to refinance a home, somebody who needs cash out of their property, I want to be the first stop. So scan this QR code and we can get together and talk about your options. Just have a conversation. Look at what your options are because too many people dismiss home ownership, dismiss the upgrades and renovation to their home because of preconceived notions that are not necessarily accurate. Sometimes they are, but a lot of times they're not. So don't fall into that trap. Please look to me as a resource, and I look forward to taking great care of you guys. Have an absolutely wonderful week, and we'll talk to you all next Friday. Bye-bye.